Okay, Joshua chapter 1. This marks a new era at Yeshua's house. We have only been in the Torah, and that is it. Now, that said, we will go to the New Testament or the Brit Hadashah time and again because it all is one book. It all relates to one another, and it's all about Yeshua. We're very aware of that. Let's pray. Father, as we work through the book of Joshua, Yehoshua, Jesus, the book of Yeshua, our salvation, who brings us into the promised land. We thank you for the way that you knit together people's lives to give us a kind of a 3D illustration of who you are, what you've done, what you are doing, what we are grafted into. We're so grateful for all of it. Father, as we give ourselves over to you more and more every day of our lives, it is our prayer that we would have the courage of Joshua, that we would have the faith and courage of Rahab, that we would see ourselves in both of these people, and that we would ultimately trust your leadership, symbolized by the ark, because truly it is you that brings us into the promised land. We love you so much. Make us a people that you know because we follow your voice. We hear you and we obey. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Well, we will continue with the Torah in the back. It's going to be 10:30, usually 10:30 to 12 before the potluck, and we'll just kind of keep doing that as a congregation year after year after year. Because when you get to Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, when you get to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, all the rest, unless you understand the Torah, you really can't understand what it is that you're reading. And that's been one of the joys of my adult life as I've matured and grown, that it is, I'll just tell you this, what a satisfying thing it is to be able to read the Bible and understand it. And not only that, not fight against it. Because we get cognitive dissonance with some of the things that we read, and we're like, that can't be, that can't be, that can't be, the Torah can't be for me. But once you realize it is indeed for you and it's not hard and quite beautiful, it's really, really a nice thing. And, I know most of you, and most of you have already come to these conclusions, and what a nice thing it is. It's nothing to gloat over. It's just, don't you like things to make sense? I certainly do. I like it when things make sense. Joshua chapter 1 is about Joshua. Joshua was the protege of Moshe, of Moses. And because he was a protege, he was kind of this leader in the making, and he definitely grew up with the Torah. He knew what was up. He understood the commandments of Yah, of God, and he did those things. And he led by the Spirit in that way. Hey guys, we're going to go and take Jericho. We're going to plan a war, and here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go study the Torah in the back. Because the battle is the Lord's. Joshua knew it. When he went into Jericho, you all know how it fell. It wasn't because they did something wonderfully militarily. It was because Yah was going to do something in a whole different way. And so imagine the responsibility that Joshua had to have in leading these people, that we're not going to use the normal weapons of war. Instead, we're going to study the word of Yah, word of God, and we are going to employ those things as we march around Jericho 7 times. And then we'll read about that at another time. How was he supposed to be strong and courageous? In the Torah. We're going to read it. That's how. Now, Rahab chapter 2. I'm going to convince you today that Rahab was saved by works too. Why? Because it says it explicitly that she was saved by works. Did she know the Torah? She did not. But still, she did something in faith and demonstrated it by a work. In other words, faith without works is dead. So here's what we know, that when she did something like she did in faith, she did a work. And in that work, it demonstrated something that was really going on in her heart. It's called fruit. I'm not ever trying to be judgmental on nobody, but I can kind of tell, because I'm not a complete knucklehead, that when someone's doing certain things, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I can certainly use a judgment, make a judgment call. And even the Apostle Paul says, hey, don't judge those on the outside of the church, but on the inside of the church, the moment they say that they are a believer in Messiah Yeshua, we do judge there, not for the purpose of hurting people, but because you know his instruction. And when you know his instruction, you can kind of match things up. What do I do when I find a discrepancy between what a person is doing and the Torah? First of all, I take a deep breath. Then I read what we read, this mantra that, that Terry calls it, about 20 times. After I read all that, the love is patient, love is kind, not boastful, and all that kind of stuff, then I might go to my brother and sister and say, here's the mismatch that I'm seeing. Done. What I find with people is when I point out the mismatch, that oftentimes many meetings are required. Like, can we clarify this? I mean, have I hurt somebody or whatever? The whole thing. I'm like, that's part of the joy of what we do. No, we don't really need the meetings. We just tell each other, we make the adjustment, move on. Boop, that easy. Shalom is such a great thing. And we've got to create a culture, even in the context of a body, that we can correct one another on toward love and good deeds, all the more as we see the day approaching, make it a cultural thing. And when we do that, no one thinks anyone's out after one another, because we're just not. I'll start today by reading about Joshua. This is Genesis chapter 1. I always tear out the pages of the Old Testament and New Testament, that little wrongly placed divider, and I accidentally grabbed Genesis chapter 1. You'd be surprised at how often you go to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, and God and Yahweh, or Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim, of God, he created him. Male and female, he created him. Now, them. Said them, them. That's right. That word male, next slide, zokar. Now, I watched like my Facebook stuff like everybody else, and Melissa Schilling Smith said, hey, isn't that a little coinkydink that here we have this Hebrew word zakar in for male, which does indeed mean male, but it also means remembrance. Remembrance. I'll tell you, because I have been in many seminaries in my life, what I have figured out is everyone likes to throw out the really cool catchphrases. One of them is the imago Dei. I don't know why they chose that one, but it's the Latin phrase for the image of God. Don't you know that we were all created in the image of God? No matter if you know the Lord, you don't know the Lord, but you're created in the image of God. We should treat everyone as valuable. That is absolutely true. But there's another layer expressed in Zokar. The layer is that you were designed to be a remembrance, to bring to memory who this God is. What is our job as a man? And females are included into the man thing in this context. But the idea here is the more that we walk in the commandments of our God, the more that the imago Dei actually turns into what God designed us to do, and that is to obey. It's so good for me. Zakar, imago Dei, image of God, which is just Latin. I don't even know why we use it, other than you can kind of put it in a book and it makes you sound smart. Yeah, well, all I'm telling you is sometimes I'm wondering, why do we pick out these phrases and all that? We could just say the image of God, right? But, in seminary school, you got to kind of make your degree sound happy, or good to other people, I suppose. I don't know. I'm just having fun with it. Here's another thing. Romans 7:14. Paul says, so the law is holy. Oh, 7:14. 14. Sorry. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am fleshly, having been sold into bondage under sin. Now, this verse is a verse that I'm using as a proof text. It's a part of a larger argument that Paul is making. But here's what I want you to see. What is the law? Spiritual. Do you want to walk in the Spirit? You do. What is one of the things that spiritual people tend to want to do when they're walking in the Spirit? They want to go into Raley's and get just the right watermelon because they know the Spirit's going to tell them exactly which one's ripe. I mean, it's just like my mind sometimes is like so foolish sometimes. Do I want to walk in the Spirit? Absolutely. If Yahweh says to go here or go here or go here, do I want to be sensitive to the Spirit's leading and do that thing? If there's a person in need and Yahweh says, man, you got to dig deep and get that 20 in your wallet, poke it out and give it to somebody, do I want to be led of the Spirit to do that? I absolutely do. But let me tell you that most of life, the most of what God thinks in terms of what is walking in the Spirit, most of it has to do with everyday obedience. You know, it's an illustration sometimes I use. I did it with the men, right? I couldn't even remember, but I just simply asked the question, do you know what the primary difference between a AAA baseball player is and a Major League Baseball player is? Huh? One is a higher level, but why are they at higher level? No, because they do get paid more money, but here's what it is. The AAA player, they can hit as far, throw as hard, they can throw the strikes, they have nasty curveballs, they can do it all. That's not that's not it. It's how consistent do you do it? That's the difference between a AAA player and an MLB player. It's nothing overly that big of a deal. When you think about it, it's just like, how consistent are you? And it's true in our lives. Are you consistently following the pattern that Yahweh has given us to live by? The Torah was given that you might walk in life. How consistently do you walk in that? Literally, that is the difference between immaturity and maturity in the Lord. It isn't knowing the scriptures. That is not maturity. Maturity is knowing it and applying it consistently over time. And when everyone else is going, here's what they do. I'm not feeling spiritual enough. I've got to go to the next conference. And I just want to say the next conference is not going to do it for you. Not even going to Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, is going to do it for you. Do it, but it is one part of a life of everyday living that we consistently obey. There is really nothing like, sometimes I want to tell people how uneuphoric my life is. It's just not. It is so simple. And what I find over time is people tend to, and I'm going to use a word, I don't mean it quite this way because I honestly don't feel this way about myself, but they admire my spirituality. They're like, I want to do what you do. How is it that you have such a healthy marriage? How do you have this? Your financial life tends to be on track. And by the way, there's a difference between a financial life being on track because you had time to do it, and sometimes you just get into situations in life where it's just hard. I've been there. I carry my food stamp card in my wallet. I've been there. I know what those things are like. Okay, so I'm not trying to put myself in a particular category, but I often get the question, "How do you do it?" And every time I tell the answer, sometimes I'll just say, I'll see the eyes glaze over a little bit. It's because I read the Torah, I see how Yeshua lived it out, and I give my life to it. And really, not only that, this might be another deciding factor is the kingdom of Yahweh is my primary concern. So I give myself to that first, above all things. First, I never, ever in my heart, I'm just telling you a maturity issue. I don't in my heart ever look for workarounds, ever. On the Shabbat, sun goes down, I don't buy or sell. I come, calls for holy convocation, I do it, and I do it week after week after week after week. The law is spiritual. I give my life over to it. It's very simple. Not a lot of accolades, not a lot of, whatever. It's just, I just do it and I do it consistently and I don't stop. And here's what I've noticed. That type of behavior bleeds over in the rest of your life in crazy, weird ways. And what I've noticed is that when we obey the commandments of God, the wars in your life that you really want fought get won, but not because you attacked the villain. It's because you stayed consistent in his word and did what you were supposed to do. And what Yahweh does is he's the one that attacks. He even knows how to come at the enemy where you don't. So when someone comes to me with a problem and they say, I've got a problem, and I say, study the scriptures and obey, it's not an answer they want to hear. They just want to know how to war in the spirit. I'm like, I just told you. But no, you're going to have to learn the hard way. And that's kind of the story of all of our lives. I'll tell you what, the reason that I am here isn't because somehow I just like, ooh, special man of God. No, 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 no. You got to remember how old I am. I am 55 senior citizen years old. And I had plenty of time to not trust, which I didn't for many years until I finally figured out that the only way that these battles are going to be fought in my life is if I didn't try to fight the battles head on, but kept my nose down and obeyed. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I just want you to know this is exactly what Joshua does. Chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came about after the death of Moshe, the servant of Yahweh. And Yahweh spoke to Yehoshua. This is literally the name Jesus here. Salvation, the son of Nun. Moses' attendant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. So now arise, cross the Jordan. This is, just so you know too, what is this about? This is a picture of the second coming of our Messiah. And the most exciting verse in this text is in chapter 3, and I think we read over it all the time. It's not really about Joshua. It's not really about Rahab. It's something that happens in chapter 3. So just know it that our Messiah is going to return, and he's going to take us into the promised land. You and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, to the sons of Israel. On every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I have given it to you, just as I spoke to Moses. Deuteronomy 11:24. Yep. We're not ever going to get away from the Torah because it's all in there. Deuteronomy 11:24. What's it say? Every place on which the sole of your foot treads shall be yours. Your border will be the wilderness to Lebanon, and from the river to the river Euphrates as far as the western sea. There is nothing new under the sun. He's already told Moshe it's exactly what I'm going to do. And he's telling Joshua exactly the same thing. Verse 4, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, which is pretty far north and to the east. And so it seems like the borders of Israel are actually extended out further. In other words, there could be a bit of a foreshadowing of what's going to happen with the millennial kingdom, because the nation of Israel, the Let's just call it cosmic geography, as Israel is bigger than just the Western Bank. All the land of the Hittites, as far as the great sea toward the setting of the sun, will be your territory. Verse 5. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life, just as it was with Moses. As I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous. The strong and courageous. Don't be fearful. Don't shrink back. Be courageous. And you shall cause this people to inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. So for them, in many ways, this is the promise to Abraham that is now playing out right in front of their eyes. And even before we get to the end of Joshua, it's going to be like, whoa, 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 why is it crumbling? What's happening here? Judges. Then we know that they all started to do what was right in their own eyes instead of letting Yahweh tell us what is good and what is evil. That is the besetting sin of everybody. We do not get to tell the God of the universe what is good and evil. That is not your job. We don't get to make it up. And if something doesn't make sense to you when you read that God says this is good and this is evil, it's because you're not God. We've read the verse, we don't have a mind that we think like you. Well, that's true. You don't. And because you don't, you can't determine good and evil. Your heart, my heart, this happens. It has a proclivity to determine what is good and evil based on what society has told me what is good and evil based on my upbringing. But the upbringing of my life is different than what is in the scriptures. So what's my job? What's your job? Our job is to let go of that cultural vapor lock on your life. I mean, it's got its talons right in you, and it does not want to let go. So our job is to let it go, and usually it's right in the middle of your psyche. We got to let it go, and we've got to follow. Verse 7. Only be strong and very courageous to be careful to do according. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to follow you and I'm going to inherit the land. I'm going to be strong and courageous. But what is his primary job? Primary job is to do all according to all the law which Moses, my servant, commanded you. Deuteronomy 31, 6 and 7. It was already told. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or in dread of them, for Yahweh your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. And then Moses called to Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land which Yahweh has sworn to their fathers to give to them, and you shall give it to them as an inheritance. Why am I going back to Torah? We were like just there. Well, I'll tell you why, because it's all rooted in the Torah. Everything that plays out this way going on in the Bible, including Yeshua, I've not come to abolish the law. I came to do it exactly as it said. So keep going back there, and then you'll understand my life, Yeshua's life. You'll understand who he is. The law which Moses, my servant, commanded you, do not turn aside from it to the right or to the left, so that you may be prosperous wherever you go. Don't you want to be prosperous? Do you think I'm into the health and wealth gospel? I am not. But I can't fully get away from it either. There's something richer about our lives. It might not give you a portion that in the parking lot, where it's the parking lot, but here's what it will do. I feel rich when my marriage works. I feel rich when the Bible makes sense. I feel rich when I know I'm forgiven. I feel rich when my relationships are shalomi. I like peace in my life. I feel the richest people. I'm telling you, it is not about me attaining material things, but I feel so rich. when my financial life is at peace, my relationships at peace, I can go, I can face a lot of struggle. And there's struggle in life, but there's just something about me. Maybe you feel this too. If I know I'm doing what Yahweh wants me to do, I can go through a lot of stuff. If I know it's Him, that's rich. That's peace. So that's, and by the way, that's healthy. That's good. I'm not saying that we won't suffer disease. We have frail bodies. But even in the disease, you can feel rich. You can feel healed and well. Verse 8, the book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. Meditate. Where do you see that? Psalm 1. It says it like right there. Meditate on that law day and night. You want to fight battles? Meditate on the law day and night. I keep saying the word law, but it's instruction in our Father's righteousness. Meditate on it because it's spiritual. When you give your heart over to it and you study it, it's beyond just doing something. There's something in there that my spirit connects with who the Father is, and I begin to walk in the Spirit in that. I know I'm a broken record, but it's important. In Proverbs chapter 3, you're familiar with 5 and 6, but verses 1 and 2, my son, do not forget my law, but let your heart guard my commandments. For the length of days and the years of life and peace they will add to you. Verse 5, trust in Yahweh with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. He's going to make your path straight. It's like Joshua. You want to go into the promised land? Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to be strong and courageous. And the first order of business is you're going to trust in me, and you're going to train people to trust in me, and you're going to walk valiantly across that river because I'm going before you with that ark, and I am going to fight your battles. You need to only do one thing, and that is to obey and trust. I put an and in there, but it's together. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Verse 7, it's not up there. Do not be wise in your own eyes. It's the same thing over and over again. I want you to know the Bible is like that. It is the same thing over and over and over again. Why is it? Because with you, it's the same thing over and over again. I've told you what to do, but you don't do it. I told you what to do, but then you don't do it. I told you what to do, and you still don't believe me, and you still don't do it. That's why it's so repetitive. Now I say you, but I'm there. Look, do I have a level of maturity? Yes, and thank the Lord for it. I'm getting older. I can't keep going back in the past and doing young and dumb stuff. Okay? And hopefully as you get older, you will do the same. Because it is just painful to go through pain. It is painful to, I'm already not rich monetarily. I'm not rich because, I just didn't make it. By the way, I learned this a long time ago. There's a couple things, Yeah, you can have an opinion at 30, it counts at 40. And then another one is if you haven't made it by 40, you're probably not going to make it. Yeah. Yeah, because I have an interest in the Bible, of course, right? But I've been around businessmen for whatever reason all my life, and I kind of hear these little snippets of truths. And the thing is, if you don't make it by 40, you're probably not going to. Now, that's in the worldly sense. When we come to the Lord and we trust him, you can make it at any age. And I want you to hear this from me too. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter. If you are 70 years old and you are putting your faith in Messiah Yeshua and you never had any of the Torah, like Rahab, I don't know how old she was. She was messing around, so she must have been somewhat attractive. So she probably wasn't too old. She was a prostitute. Well, in that way, probably, and make good money. I'm not really sure what the situation was, but she was probably a little bit more attractive. My point to you is that it doesn't matter how old we are, Yahweh will take you right where you are and make you rich if you understand what his understanding of riches is. For then you will make your way, in the second half of 8, successful, and then you will be prosperous. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be in dread or be dismayed, for Yahweh your God is with you wherever you go. Now, before I go into this little next section here, I want to tell you something that I don't fully understand yet in my own life. It is clear that Joshua was taken over from Moses. Be strong and courageous, go into the promised land. And he doesn't know, but at this point, he does not know that the priests are going to put their feet on the water and the water is going to stop up by a place called Adam, which is curious. We'll get there in a sec. He doesn't know that. And I'm like, you ever had this feeling like, Yahweh, I want to be strong and courageous for you, but could you kind of clearly tell me what I'm supposed to do? And then I'll go be strong and courageous for you because I just want to know what I'm supposed to do first. You ever had that feeling? Like I feel like I'm strong and courageous, but then I'm like, and then here's another one is like Yeshua. He kind of puts the beat down on some of the Pharisees sometimes, calls it brood of vipers. And I'm like, I don't know that I can quite say that to anyone quite yet. Part of the reason is because I'm not so confident that I'm the guy that's supposed to be kind of spewing out those kinds of words. I mean, I'm okay with the whole like, I watch you like you're throwing over the money changers. You're taking the I don't know. I can see him coming in and like all this riffraff on the tables, and you're taking the the folding tables and throwing them down. I'm like, you can do that, but I'm not sure that I'm ready to do that. Because I'm sure I could probably go into some. Look, I'm not in the business, and I don't encourage anyone to put down other fellowships. That is not the idea here. Okay, not the idea. But I'm like, I could probably go into a few, and there might be some tables that need to be overturned because they're selling wares and they're just kind of making it a spectacle, and it's just not good. And I'm like, Lord, tell me. I want to be courageous like you. I want to do what you want to do, but I need you to tell me. One of them is this way back when Yahweh says to my little heart, I want to start Yeshua's house. And I'm telling you because I'm getting older, I'm like, don't pick me. Please do not pick me. Don't pick me. As much as I wanted it, still don't pick me. And the reason is because, the whole Saturday thing, telling people they got to do the law. I'm like, it's just not a hot seller. I mean, it's just not going to go over super well. I mean, it's good on a meme on Facebook, but I mean, I'm talking about real dollars here that I have to put out and all this stuff, right? And the Lord gives us this and all that. And I'll just tell you, I've felt so opposite of strong and courageous many, many times doing this. Like opposite day. I'm like, but if I knew I'd be a little bit stronger, if I knew the outcome, if I knew that we would be solid, right? If I knew that somehow we'd get to a place where we could serve our youth, that's a big deal to me. If I knew we could get there, then I'd be a little bit stronger, a little courageous. And then I'm just sitting here recognizing that Joshua did not know the outcome. He didn't know when the priests were put their feet in the water that it was going to part. He didn't know. I'm just thinking there's stuff in your life and there's stuff in my life that we just don't know the outcome. And still we have this charge. Be strong and courageous. And we need to walk in faith. And whatever it is that you think Yah has given to you, provided that passes all the tests. Is it of Torah? Is it right in my heart? Does wise counsel tell me like, yes, this is a good and right thing? You get all the pieces together, maybe together, this is something I'm still maturing in, is how do you get to a place in life where you can walk confidently with the Lord and what he's telling you to do and just do it strongly and courageously. That's where I feel like a little bit more of a kiddie. I'm not really that person. I'm not risk adverse. I'm just pain avoidant. I don't know how to describe that. But if you're in that place, just know that you have a brother up here that is working stuff out too in that. Verse 10. Then Joshua. Oh, maybe I'll stop. That's a good place to stop for questions. Questions, insights on this little first part. Questions, insights. Got two over here.
I go first. Hi, Denise. Um, just a note from my complete Jewish Bible that to keep the book of the Torah on your lips and meditate, the word is Haggah, and it also means muttering. And I thought that would be a good replacement for my grumbling. You know,
Oh,
if I
yes,
would
it would.
mutter the words of God instead of grumbling. Huh? No, I'm not going to give you an example of grumbling.
Oh, that Trevor, I can't believe he does that. Instead, she would say, trust in the Lord with all my heart and lean not on my understanding. Okay.
Like that. There you go.
Yeah, something different. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And then the other thing is just to comment on how many times be strong, be very bold. It means it's not going to be easy. You don't need boldness if you can see, if it's easy. He's basically saying, look, this is going to be tough. You need to trust me and just keep going with me.
Amen. Amen.
I'm Lindsay, and the boys and I were reading this at home. And as they were reading it out loud, I know the text is about Joshua, son of Nun. But as they were reading out loud, I saw the Father speaking to the Son. And this is what I heard. So, verse by verse. Verse 1. Now it came about after the death of the prophets, the servants of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, that Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh spoke to Yeshua, his son, saying, 2. My servants are dead, so arise, be born of water, into my land, which I am giving to the sons of Israel. 3. Every place the sole of your foot treads, I give to you. Go, walk amongst my people. 4. All the land will be your territory. 5. No man will be able to stand against you. I will be with you. I will not fail or forsake you. 6. Be strong and courageous. First time. You shall cause the people to inherit my kingdom. 7. Be strong and courageous. Second time. You shall fulfill my law. Do not turn aside to the right or the left. You will be prosperous. 8. The book of the law will be spoken from your mouth day and night. Remind my people to keep my ways. You will be successful. You will be prosperous. 9. Be strong and courageous. Third time. Do not be in dread or dismayed, for I, your Father, am with you. So it made me think, like, I know Joshua's getting this commission from Yahweh, but it's almost like before Yeshua is born from the ark of the womb of his mother, by the waters into flesh, into humanity, he is getting commissioned by his Father, basically the same message for a similar purpose of go to the land, go to my people, redeem, restore, you are salvation, I make a way. So that's all I have.
Thank you. An attractively bearded man in the back. We like the beard.
Why, thank you. I'm just thinking, is that up to my mouth? Okay. I'm just thinking, Joshua's in the desert with Moses, and he's watching how the people grumble against Moses and how Moses is carrying all of this stress and this just stress behind the people. And here you have Moses speaking face to face with Yah. And then this is turned over to Joshua. Just what Joshua must have been. Moses didn't get to come into the promised land because he messed up, but he spoke to you face to face. and now you want me to carry these people. And I'm just thinking that when each of us feel like God has called us to something, the level of the stress, I know in my life when I know he's called me to do things that I know that he's called me to do, and I'm going, I'm not that guy. I don't know, because like you said, if he says, here's what I want you to do, and here's how you're going to do it, and I'm going to cover you, and you don't have to worry about it. And Jim's going to come from the right, but I'm going to smack him down, and Fred's going to come from the left, and I'm going to smack him down. But he doesn't tell you that. He just says, trust me. That's the hard part.
Amen. That's right. It is the hard part. And Yahweh will continue to test us to develop our trust over time. He certainly tested me. And I want you to know that's sometimes why I kind of keep everything very loose in some of the confidences that I have, because I know, because I've experienced it, Yahweh can rug pull you anytime he wants. He can think, oh yeah, you got it all figured out. You're walking in blessing because you're doing my stuff. Boop. Now what you gonna do? Okay. It's happened to me. I've gotten the carpet pull a couple times. So I say everything that I say very with fear and trembling. Fear and trembling. Thank you for that input. It's important. Verse 10. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourselves. For within 3 days, anytime you see 3 in the Bible, resurrection and life. Who's your provision? Your provision is the Messiah. We're going to read that in just a sec. You are to cross this Jordan, this chasm, this body of water, into a promised land by the blood and body of Messiah Yeshua. The curtain is torn. It's his body torn in two. We eat of his manna, the body of our Messiah. 3 days, 3 nights, he's in the grave and conquers death. We cross over into the promised land to go in to possess the land which Yahweh, your God, is giving you to possess it. John 6, verses 48 through 50. I, Yeshua says, am the bread of life. You want your provision? He is the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, so that one may eat it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. I won't put that one up there, but it's there. There's these metaphorical things that are not metaphorical. Joshua's actually going through it, but it is Yahweh showing us through this prophetic imagery that when he returns, we secure for ourselves, in some sense, the provisions that we need in the bread of Messiah, in his death and resurrection. That's how we cross the Jordan. Now, I've told you this, and it's not unique to me. This is Brad Scott. Thank you for him. Lord, thank you for him. What is Yahweh after? A house, a family, and a piece of land. A house, a family, and a piece of land. That's something you should always say over and over again. Even in the Imago Dei, even in the image of God, you were designed to want to have relationship. You want a house, a family, and a nice little quaint piece of land, do you not? Of course you do. You're designed this way. You're like your Father in that. And he's just trying to expand your horizon to say, I'm going to make you rich. Your inheritance is going to be my Torah, but you're going to bring the Torah into this land situation. What's the land situation? The millennial kingdom. House, family, and a piece of property. Now, this next section, it's kind of this, but why is it there? We have the Reubenites, the Gadites, and Manasseh. I think here some healing is going on. What healing? Genesis 44:33. Let me tell you what Judah does. So now, he says, please let your servant remain instead of the boy a slave to my Lord, and let the boy go up with his brothers. Let me tell you what's going on there. Joseph has two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Wait, switch that. Manasseh and Ephraim, because Manasseh is the older, Ephraim is the younger. He gets a double blessing. Joseph gets a double blessing. So Jacob marries two ladies, ends up marrying two ladies because he falls in love with Rachel. It's Rachel, right? Rachel. Leah is the one that he gets stuck with, I guess, for 7 years. I'm not sure how that all works, but it wasn't his fave. But Leah, she bears him 4 sons right off the bat. Boom, 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 4. Number 4 is Judah. And Judah, he's going to end up becoming a man of good character, but he wasn't always that way. Go back to Genesis 38 with Tamar, there's some uncharacter things going on. But here's what we know. I'm going to kind of shorten the story. Jacob has these 12 sons. The last 2 are Joseph and Benjamin. Joseph has this dream. And in this dream, he basically says, I saw the stars and all that, and they're bowing down. And probably you guys are going to be like bowing down to me. A little uncomfortable in saying that. But the thing is, it's still true because it's going to happen. So what happens, there ends up being a famine in the land. I get my story out of whack here. I need to be a better storyteller. But before that, Joseph, because he has this special coat made with all these colors by his dad, and they're out wandering, and they're like, we got to get rid of this guy. So they throw him in a pit, and then he ends up in Egypt. And then he ends up, because of Yahweh's favor on him, rising up in Egypt. But the reason he got there in the first place is because his brothers are really, really mean. Like, throw him in. At least they didn't kill him. That's good. Throw him in. So then they go back to the dad, Jacob, and they say, well, we've got his coat here, and it appears that he's kind of torn up by wild animals. And that's hard, when the firstborn of Rachel, the one that you love, is gone. I mean, he grieved and grieved and grieved. So a little bit later on in life, there's this famine. Then we get to the famine, and the famine, Jacob sends the boys down to Egypt, and Joseph is there in disguise. He's raised up in the kingdom. He's in disguise, and they don't recognize him. And I'm trying to condense here. In one of the times where they came down to get some food, Joseph instructs one of his servants to stick, I think it's like a gold cup or something like that, in his bag, because what he wants to do is do a setup so that when they're going back to the land, he's going to find this treasure in the bag of Benjamin on purpose because he wants to keep Benjamin back. So you can read Genesis 43 and 44 if you want to get all the details of the story, but I want to get to the punchline. The punchline is Judah says, we can't do that. I don't want to keep Benjamin here. He's like, you see, he doesn't know it's Joseph. You see, Egyptian leader with all the, all the riches here. We come to buy food here. I know you don't know me or my family, and Joseph does know, right? Remember, he's incognito. It's like, I know you don't know me or my family, but he already lost my dad, Jacob, already lost one son, Joseph. Joseph is like, you don't know, I'm right here. I'm right here. But he's concealing himself, right? He's like, but if I go back to my dad and we don't have Benjamin with us, he's going to die. He can't handle it. His heart can't take it. Judah says, well, I'll stand in his place. And right there, Joseph just loses it. He's like, oh my gosh, you are not the same men that threw me in that pit. You're going to stay here for your brother? I mean, what changed you? Wow, what in the world? So I just want you to see that right at this point, the change in heart of Judah. Now we have Yeshua, by the way, is a Lion of tribe of Judah who stands in our place. You know, these stories are like interwoven. At the end of Jacob's life, Joseph brings his two sons to him, Manasseh and Ephraim. And what Jacob does is he switches his hands and he blesses the younger, Ephraim, meaning fruitful, and then Manasseh, who is the older, but not going to get that top double portion prosperity blessing. His name means making forget, literally, hardship of the past. It's kind of this idea of, and that's why he's named Manasseh. It's when he's born, Joseph is naming him based on, you're making me forget the hardship of the past. Now I have this son. Well, these two tribes end up being two prominent tribes in Israel. And Manasseh is the one in this text that is grouped in with the Reubenites and Gadites. Well, it's pretty short, so I could read it to you. Verse 12. To the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the word which Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded you, saying, Yahweh your God gives you rest and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan, but you shall cross before your brothers in battle array. All your valiant warriors shall keep them until Yahweh gives your brothers rest as he gives you, and they also possess the land which Yahweh your God is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and possess it, which Moses, the servant of Yahweh, gave you beyond the Jordan to the east toward the sunrise. Now, if you remember back in the Torah, when they were there in Moab before they're going to cross over, the Gadites and the Reubenites notice that even though we're supposed to cross the Jordan, we've got a lot of sheep, cattle, and this is a really nice grazing land. Can we stay here? And I guess Moshe talking to God, I can't remember exactly, but I don't think there's any indication, but essentially Moses allows it, but he says, hey, it's based on this condition though. The condition is you've got to go in and fight with us. When we cross the Jordan, you go in and you fight. Now, who's asking for this? It is the Reubenites and the Gadites, not Manasseh. Not Manasseh. That's the key. Why is Manasseh? Can you go back? There is a, kind of remember where you are, go back to the map. So we're basically at Shittim right now. Shittim is there, right there in the territory that's going to be Gad's. Notice Reuben to the south, and then Manasseh to the north. They're on their way over to Jericho. Why is Manasseh there? And why is Manasseh on the west side and the east side? Why is that? I have a conjecture. The conjecture is that there's some healing going on. The healing is whereas before the brothers betrayed one another, now we have Reuben and Gad do not betray. They're allowed to stay in that part of the land. And as a token of this healing relationship, Manasseh, who is the son of Joseph, who was wronged, is now over on the Gad and Reuben side. And also on the other side, you notice the big span there. And I think that there's a healing relationship that is happening there with all these tribes. And when you know it, I think that this is what's happening when Yeshua returns and he establishes all where the Israelite tribes will be, and you and I will be grafted into that. But in that, there will be healing in this land. That was the first time I've ever explained that, so I'll get better explaining that. But I just wanted you to see on the map that in this cosmic geography, Yahweh is also bringing about healing. In verse 16, I see you, Kathy. I'll be right there. And they answered Joshua. You can go down to, what you'll have to do is click on one that has the background image and go all the way back up to the top. So it resets. Yep. And then you can kind of go back down. And there's another way to do that, but that's beyond us right now. And they answered Joshua, verse 16, saying, all that you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we listened to Moses in all things, so we will listen to you. Only may Yahweh your God be with you as he was with Moses. Anyone who rebels against your command and does not listen to your words in all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. What you see is you see brothers that are there fighting together. And what does any parent want? You want all of your children fighting together for a good and righteous cause, and they love each other in doing it. And that's what we see here with Joshua. Kathy.
When we get grafted in, is that like we're gonna? Thank you, Matthew. When we get grafted in, will that be like this into the actual tribes, or how will that work?
Well, I don't know exactly how it works, but I do know the moment you placed your faith in Messiah Yeshua, you were grafted in into the Commonwealth of Israel. Now I get people asking me like, well, what tribe do you go to? And the new heaven and new earth, the new Jerusalem comes down. What gate am I going in? I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that we are grafted in. It's one law. It's one obedience. We're all a brotherhood and sisterhood. And which door, frankly, you get a door. Just be happy. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that works. So I wish I knew more on that. Okay, we'll break just for a sec here. Not break, but any comments, questions, or insights?
Reuben's the only reason that Joseph isn't killed,
Right? Yep.
because it's the other 12 say kill him. Or, I mean, other 9, because Benjamin's obviously not involved in it, but the other brothers say kill him. Reuben says don't kill him.
Yep. Throw him in the pit.
Yeah,
We can make some money off of
Reuben's
it.
got his angle that he's gonna become the hero and try and reclaim what he lost when he violated his dad's other wife.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an angle on it. So it's not the most noble thing, but that might be like this remnant of being split. Because you got big tribe Reuben right there with that small little part of one of Joseph's sons' descendants
Mm-hmm.
being kind of protected from the other tribes.
Yep.
So he's like isolated and protected by the oldest brother in that corner.
Good. Good. Thank you. Any other insights that you have? You know, you're reading through all this stuff too, so you're like, oh yeah, I saw that. And then Tammy afterwards.
I heard it suggested that maybe the Gentiles are drafted into Ephraim and Manasseh since they were half-bloods from Egypt. Joseph's.
Okay. Ephraim was often designated as the dominant tribe of the northern kingdom. And so what happens is you have Judah and Benjamin to the south, and they stay relatively to the northern kingdom. They were a little bit better because you had good king, bad king, bad king, good king, bad king, bad king, bad king, good king. Up to the north, it was just bad. To the south, it was mostly bad. So in some relatively sense, you are gooder if you're less bad. Both are bad. So in Jeremiah, they both get a certificate of divorce because they're both bad, but one's less worser. I'm a king at double negatives, no problem here. But the idea is, yeah. Where was I going with that? Cannot remember exactly. What was it about? The grafting in? Oh, yeah. Oh, Ephraim. So why do we even call Jews Jews? Jews is because you have the kingdom of Judah to the south. They become the dominant tribe. And because they carried on in some religiosity, they became known as the Jews. But to the north, you call them Israel, but everyone gets confused because, like, whoa, wait a minute, isn't it all Israel? Well, Israel would be sometimes in contrast to Judah to the south, but Ephraim would also be the northern part. Sometimes Yahweh is a kind of like a pet name, I guess, would call Israel to the north Ephraim, and Ephraim was spread out everywhere. And that's where the idea that a lot of people intermarried with those who were non-Jews to the north, and they became part of the tribes in that way. That's a kind of a weird, not weird, an interesting rabbit trail that we don't need to go on today, but it is certainly there and it makes this circuit in Hebrew roots ideology. Let's put it that way. Okay. And Tammy.
This is Tammy. Um, see if I can articulate. In verse 11, it's talking about prepare for yourself, food for yourself, for in 3 days we're going to cross over. So for me, I'm like, what kind of preparation are we to do now for going forth? I'm all for manna. I'm all for God's provision, and I believe in it. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be preparing for it.
Mm-hmm.
How does that look?
Yeah. So what I would say is that the primary provision any one of us can make is to give our hearts fully to trust over to the Lord, and we walk in his instruction. That's the number one thing. And I mean number one in the context of actual loving relationship. I'm not talking dead works where we're just doing Torah to do Torah stuff, okay? But we're actually of circumcised heart and we're walking in the King's commandments because we're in love. That's the number one thing. Then, of course, there's this, well, what about actual preparations? Like, should I build a bunker? Should I stockpile water and food? To which every one of you have to answer that question for yourself. Most of you, I know that you cannot build bunkers because you don't have enough to fill your shopping cart up at Costco. I don't either. So I'm not building any bunkers. I can't even barely buy enough sometimes. Well, not now, but I can't, I can't, I can't overly stockpile because I don't have the financial wherewithal to stockpile. However, based on your personality and your wherewithal, it is good to be prepared for all kinds of situations. And so, in that, I would say be adequately prepared without going berserk. That's what I would say. And in whatever level of preparedness that you have, do not think that your level of preparedness is necessarily um, the way that other people should prepare. In fact, the better thing for us to do if Yeshua is going to return and we go into some war type situations, it would be far better for all of us to be prepared with the idea that we're also going to supply each other's needs because we are a family. So if you over prepare, don't think in terms of self, think in terms of us. And it could come a time where those that have too much will give to those in need, and those who are in need will not be without as well. So that's where I am on it. Take it how you want.
Hi, I'm Patty. I noticed that Joshua 13, remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God is giving you rest and will give you this land. It's an echo of Malachi 4:4. Remember the law of Moses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it's Malachi that's doing the echoing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, as you move along in the Bible, the things will echo in the past. Yep. Over here, Jacob.
Yeah, so credit to my wife who would never speak up because she's too shy. I love you. Um, so John, you had a question about inheritance, and I mean, so Jamie found this verse in Ezekiel, and it's Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 21. It says, "You are to divide this land amongst yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. You will allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and for the stranger residing amongst you, who have fathered children amongst you. You will treat them like native-born Israelites along with you, and they will be allotted an inheritance amongst the tribes of Israel. In whatever tribe the alien resides, you will assign the inheritance there." This is the Lord's declaration. So, yeah,
Amen.
pretty much where you end up in the land with a greater exodus, that's home. And you get treated like native born. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Good catch, Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie.
Yep. Thank you, Jamie. Through Jacob. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Denise.
Just to comment again, how many times does it say, be strong and courageous, be bold? Courage is not the absence of fear. It is bravery in the face of fear. So you can be afraid. You can be concerned. You're just supposed to do the thing anyway.
Yeah, amen to that. You know why? Because I found that I get scared out of my boots, but I still take the next steps. And I've noticed that about myself, that I do tend to get timid and freaked out, just basically freaked out, but I'll still pull the trigger. So I'm thinking to myself, there's hope for you. Maybe your lion heart will finally emerge at some point, but there's been no roaring on my end. It's just more of, I'll just take the next step. I'll just take the next step. Thank you for that.
And that is the only way to get over any fear, is to just do it.
Yeah, well,
You'll never get over it.
that's right. Thank you.
Just an observation I'm starting to key in on as we go through the text in depth like we do, but in verse 18 of that chapter 1, well, starting actually in 17, 16 says, "And they answered Yehoshua, saying, all that you have commanded us, we will do, and wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we listened to Moses in all things, so we will listen to you." And then they continue on. So to me, I am hearing vow language, like they're making a vow, a promise, a declaration. And so I just kind of put a little note because I'm going to be curious to see if they keep it as we continue on through the book and as other text like supplements it. So it's just kind of one of those little keep on the shelf and see as we go through.
Do you want me to tell you?
No.
Okay, no, I won't. I need to talk about Rahab for a little bit. You're getting one of these because I only needed one, but I couldn't buy just one. Went to Michael's and you had to buy the whole thing. So I'm like, I'll just give everyone one. Here's our scarlet cord. Symbolizes Rahab. The story of Rahab is the story of Joshua, and it just told in a little bit different way. It's a story of salvation. It's a story of works. It's a story of courage. And it's exactly the same outcome. Chapter 2, verse 1, then Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men as spies. Oh, we sent 2 spies before. Now we're sending 2 more spies. The spies secretly from Shittim. You never want to stay in Shittim. You want to get out of Shittim. saying, "Go see the land, especially Jericho." So they went and came into the house of a harlot, prostitute, whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told to the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, men from the sons of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land." And the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all of the land." All right. So we don't just read it. Rahab's up in her house. They have a walled city. These two men sent from Shittim by Joshua have crossed over. They're spies. They get into the city gates. The doors are locked. They end up, they're probably freaking out, like, "Oh, are we going to get out of here?" They end up finding a little bit of a safe house, a safe place with Rahab. And Rahab's like, "Hey, we've heard about you guys. And I'm going to tell you something I probably shouldn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. We kind of know that your God is a big deal. We know that he got you out of Egypt. We know how he took care of you. We know all that. And if you're strong and courageous, just know our guys are not strong and courageous, because our hearts are kind of melting in fear about this whole deal. So if you want some insider information, you might think you're coming to conquer us and all that. And kind of, if you want to know what state we're in not a good state. We're scared. And so the king questions Rahab, and she's like, "Well, they're not with me." But she hid them up on the roof, and she put flax over them, hid them. And she says to the spy, she says, "Hey, I'm going to basically lie. And when it's dark, they're going to close the gate, but you should sneak out, and I want you to go to the hill country." And the hill country is likely more to the west, because what's going to happen is when they're running after them, they're going to run toward the Jordan, and they're going to be looking for these guys. And Rahab says, "What I want you to do is I want you to stay out for like 3 days, and then when they're done hunting for you, then you go," which is exactly what they did. And she said, "But as I cover for you, could you please, when you come and you ransack us, could you spare me and my family?" And they said, "We will do that, provided that you make sure we know where you are and you tie this scarlet cord." Now, I think in my little story, I had them running out the door, but they didn't run out the door. They're lowered by a rope down through the wall. Can't remember exactly, all the details. I'm just trying to speed up the process a little bit. This scarlet cord, why is it there? It's there. We all know it's red. We know that at Passover, that there was blood that was applied to the door frames of the houses, the domiciles. And we also know that we know that this is a representation of Messiah's blood that was shed for Rahab. And she does something in faith, but it's only a bit in faith. Not a bit. It's all in faith, but it's only part of the story. So I want to read to you James chapter 2, verse 25. Can you skip down to James chapter 2, verse 25? Here's what it says. "And in the same way, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by" what? Works. "When she received the messengers and sent them out by another way. For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead." Did Rahab know the Torah? No, she did not. Yet she is saved because of her trust in the Messiah, as best she could understand it. She stood up for these spies. She knew Yahweh. It's kind of like Ruth, when we get there, Ruth Your God, Naomi, will be my God, your people, my people. This is Rahab's version of it. She is making money by sleeping with men, and yet she's in her heart's like, I'm done with this life. And by the way, we all know this, that every woman of the night, every prostitute does not want to do that. She just has no way to make money. That's what's going on. She has no way to make money. She doesn't have any way to support herself. She doesn't have a husband. So she's doing this. No, it's not, doesn't make it right. It's just, it is what it is. But even this woman, she has faith and does something. And James says, but look at the work. Here's my point here. My point is, Yahweh knows in our lives what real faith is. It is by grace through faith that we are saved, not of our works. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8, 9, and then 10. So that we may do good works, but we're not saved by the good works. We are saved by faith, by faith, by faith, but not a fake faith. Rahab did a work, and the work was in faith. I believe I'm betting my whole existence on this, which she does. She lays her very life on the line, and then she's saved. She's going to be saved. You'll see that. She's saved. Not in this text, but she's saved. Let's go to verse 14, chapter 2, verse 14. So the men said to her, "Our life for yours, if you do not tell this business of ours, like you'll cover for us. And it will be when Yahweh gives us the land that we will show you loving kindness and truth to you." Verse 15, and then she let them down by a rope through the window. She says, "Go." Verse 16 at the very end, "And hide yourselves there for 3 days until the pursuers return." And then they said, verse 18, "Unless when we come into the land, you tie the scarlet cord." And yeah, I think we covered that enough. The thief on the cross is very similar too. Did the thief on the cross, is he going to be in paradise today because he did any of the Torah? No, he has faith. The thief on the cross says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Today, Yeshua says, today you will be with me in paradise. And that thief, he does not do any of the instruction of God. Even then, though, he does a work. The work is he believes in his heart. Had he come down off the cross, what would he have done? He would have picked up the instruction of God and started doing it. Here's my point on all of this. There's just no way to fake out God. No way. If your faith is genuine, he will know. And then if you have any breath of existence after your commitment to Messiah Yeshua, you will go on to bear fruit. That's what believers do. All right, anything on that part before we get to the most important verse, I think, of this text? Anything on Rahab over here? Maybe take this home and, stick it somewhere.
It's me again. So with the cord, do you think that the two go in there? Because there's a lot of echoes going on here. So you have the echo of God sending 2 spies to check out Sodom and Gomorrah for its wickedness.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 guys going into here, but it's contrasted with Lot, where Lot kind of tries to protect him, but Rahab goes all the way to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
And then these guys say, "We'll put this scarlet cord." Do you think it's at the forefront of their minds that they're considering the Passover, and that they're connecting that somehow the calamity will pass over Rahab's house by placing red on the lintel/doorpost? Because you can't see it from the inside, but they place it on the window. So like in their mind, they're connecting deliverance and Passover with marking her window red. Because then what it does is it keeps it safe from the destroyer, because that's who Joshua, he's going to meet the angel of the Lord. And presumably it's the angel of the Lord that causes the calamity to Jericho at the sound of the trumpet. So I'm just wondering if there's like a series, like just in these men's minds,
Yeah.
that they obviously came out of Egypt and they were young men in Egypt. They weren't part of the disobedient group. So they're equating the blood of the Passover lamb with deliverance for a Gentile, which is really radical.
Let me ask you a question. The question is, like, just say you're asking me, do I think that there's anything in Scripture that tells us that they knew and they said, instead of green or purple, they picked the scarlet cord in relation to that? I don't think there's anything in Scripture that tells me that. No. But the but is, let's just say this was Jacob as one of the spies, a man that has the ability to see all these connections. And Joshua has said to you, I want you to go in. You're not sure what's going to happen there. Would you on the spot be able to, in your mind, say, you know what we're going to do here? We're going to have you hold a cord, and the cords are going to be red. I bet they made all these connections just like you would. Maybe even a little bit better.
Yeah, because it happened to them.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
My guess is they probably did.
Yeah. I just never saw it before until you brought up the thing. And I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
Yeah.
That surprises me. I would have thought that you would have made all those connections already.
Nope.
Oh,
That's new. Thank you.
no, good to know.
You taught me.
Yeah, no, good to know. Lindsay.
So on this thread of Passover, I too saw that there was that direction that they were supposed to stay indoors. In 3 days, it sounded like they had to be in there. And if they went out, then they were jeopardizing their own lives. There was the possibility of death and not salvation. And it, same thing with the Israelites before the Exodus. They were to have the Passover lamb. They were to stay inside their homes. They were not to go through the doorway. The death angel comes over. So if they remained in their house, then they were saved from death. And then what came to mind was Yeshua, and the Gospels tell us that he had the Passover meal with his disciples. So ideally, they would stay in the house, right? It would follow that thread. But instead, Yeshua chooses to go out, and he goes out to the garden, and he very boldly and timidly says, I choose death. I will go out of the protection, and I will die.
Mm.
So it was just an interesting.
Yeah. What a beautiful picture.
Regarding Rahab, I'm just reading here where it talks. Tells them that she's heard of them. So word has spread of Adonai and the great things he's done for these people, to the point that they're afraid, they're depressed, they're worried. It's like they didn't even have like social media, right? I mean, how did this word spread? That's an amazing. But that she believed. So that was her faith. Her faith was in, she didn't even know God. She just heard about who he was. And she accepted and recognized his power. And she wanted to align herself with that. So it's really, really, really cool. And then, of course, that that was significant enough that she was then part of the line of David and part of our Savior.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big deal. I think a bigger deal than this is even getting across.
Well, because it hasn't played out yet, right? Rahab, by the way, is mentioned more times in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, than Joshua. Twice versus once, I think.
Yeah, so in Joshua chapter 5, Yahushua chapter 5, what do they celebrate before Jericho's destroyed? Passover. So these guys are like basically saying they're connecting her deliverance. Like they go over right after with the cord, and then it's Passover.
Yeah.
And then that's immediately when Yahushua meets the angel of the Lord right after Passover. So you're supposed to connect all of it.
You are, as we will circumcision.
Yeah,
Yep, all
that-
of it.
That's really cool.
Okay, I got to bring it home here. Then Joshua, chapter 3, verse 1. He rose up early in the morning, and he and all his sons of Israel set out from Shittim, came to the Jordan, and they lodged there before they crossed. Now it happened that at the end of the 3 days, that the officers went through the midst of the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of Yahweh your God, with the Levitical priests carrying it, then you shall set it from your place and go after it. However, there shall be between you and it a distance of about 2,000 cubits by measure. 2,000 cubits, about a half mile, a little over a half mile. 0.56 miles, because I looked it up. And there's a very practical thing going on here. The practical thing is, if you were to follow too close, not everyone could see the ark. At a half mile, if there was separation and the ark's going before, it's just far enough that a host of people, 1,000,000 people, could see that ark and not get all crowded around it and see where they're supposed to go. So a very practical reason why they had to keep their distance. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. They've never crossed over this Jordan. They've not gone into Jericho, not like this. Then Joshua, verse 5, said to the people, set yourselves apart as holy, for tomorrow Yahweh will do wondrous deeds among you. And Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, carry the ark of the covenant and cross over ahead of the people. What's leading the charge? It is the ark of the covenant. It is the commandments of God. It is the manna of God. It is Aaron's staff that budded. It is the mercy seat. All of it is it's who Yeshua is as our leader, our bread of life, the lawgiver. It's all there in him. He's going to before us. It will be the same at the end of the age. Yeshua returns, the same is going to make the possibility of a new millennial kingdom because of what he is. And Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, carry the ark of the covenant and cross over ahead of the people. So they carried the ark of the covenant and went ahead of the people. And for me, this is the most important verse of the whole thing. It's not about Joshua. It is not about Rahab. Then Yahweh said to Joshua, this day I will begin to magnify you in the sight of all Israel. You now is Yeshua. In you, the one that will be the conqueror. Our king is at the right hand of the Father, and he's going to return. And as we cross over in this greater or second Exodus, it is at this time that Yeshua will be magnified in front of the nations. And we're seeing it right here. Why is this so important? Because the narrative is not about the man Joshua. It is not about Rahab. The primary issue here is a king is returning to reign and will be exalted, and every knee will bow, every tongue will confess at some point that Yeshua is king. This is what makes our heart beat. The exaltation of Messiah Yeshua, that they may know that just as I have been with Moshe, I will be with you. Just as I was with Moses as the human lawgiver, I will be with the one who takes those who abide in my commandments, and I will exalt him as king over that kingdom. Verse 8, moreover, you shall command the priests who are carrying the ark of the covenant, saying, when you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And then Joshua said to the sons of Israel, come near and hear the words of Yahweh your God. And Yehoshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will assuredly dispossess from before you the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Hivite, the Perizzite, the Girgashite, the Amorite, the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth. of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over ahead of you into the Jordan. Our Messiah will return and he will cross over ahead of us. So now, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one man for each tribe. And it will be that when the soles of the feet of the priests who carry the ark of Yahweh and the Lord of all the earth rest in the waters of the waters of the Jordan will be cut off. They're going to pass through on dry land, just as they did coming out of Egypt. It's going to come through the mediator of the priesthood, and the waters which are flowing down from above will stand in one heap. So it happened that when the people set out from their tents to cross the Jordan with the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant before the people, and when those who carried the ark came into the Jordan, and the feet of the priests carrying the ark were dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all the days of the harvest, the waters, verse 16, the waters which were flowing down from above stood and rose up in one heap a great distance from Adam. It's only here. The city that is beside Zarephan, and those which are flowing down toward the sea of Arabah. Now, let's just see, do we have Zarephan? I tried to load in the font. I'm not sure if is there, yep. Oh, it didn't transfer over. Just so you know, when you use Proto-Sinaitic Hebrew fonts or Paleo-Hebrew fonts, they don't translate over into ProPresenter unless you put the font in the file. So I'm learning. Well, the first one, C, when you type it in, it's a Sade. This is Zarathan. So how would they put it in English? Zarathan, but it's 4 Hebrew letters. And what I'm learning in Hebrew is when you get some of these, like, let's look at the root word, let's look at the meaning of the word in Paleo-Hebrew, because in Paleo-Hebrew, or what's called Proto-Sinaitic Hebrew, they use pictures. So Aleph is the picture of an ox head, which represents strength. So Hebrew words are kind of put together by these different meanings of these letter pictures. And the first one, a Sade, you could just kind of go onto the, you can kind of go on the internet and find whichever one makes your storyline fit the best. And what I kind of thought to myself is, man, there's so many different definitions of these Paleo-Hebrew letters, but let me pick what I think makes most sense given the context. And the context on the Sade, is a picture. You can't see it. It's a picture of a man laying on his side. And the definition I picked, because it's one of many definitions, of man snared. But the head, so a rosh is the head, but the head has marked. So the tav is representation of you mark a person. It's covenantal language marked by the sun. So, I'm just conjecturing. I've never read this in any commentary, but, I'm just kind of getting to the place in my life where I can kind of like, okay, these words mean something. So I looked it up, and where the waters stop is up by Adam, humans, humanity, you. It is a man snared. Adam is laying down he's in the dirt. The head is marked by the sun. So there's a potential word picture for all you Hebrew junkies out there that you can go look it up for yourself. But I just literally pulled it up and I matched up the words or the definitions with the letters. And it's pretty easy to get that little string of potential definitions based on that word. And I'm sorry I don't have the nice little touchy-feely Hebrew pictures there for you, but I'll learn for next time. Technology is a wonderful thing until it doesn't work. Well, the waters pile up in one heap a great distance away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarephan. And I think we all say this, right? There's nothing that is like ancillary in the Bible. It all means something. And those which were flowing down toward the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, were completely cut off. So the people crossed opposite Jericho, and the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on dry ground until all the nation had completed crossing the Jordan. Yahweh puts a hard stop, a man laying down on his side. He marks him with this covenant. He knows you when you're marked by his covenant. He saves you. And through his priesthood, his high priesthood, he steps in the water and the waters part for you to cross over. And then next week, we got a lot more coming. Let's pray and be done for the day. Abba, we love you so much. We praise you. You are our King, our God. We thank you for Joshua and for Rahab. And even Rahab was saved by works. That was rooted in faith. I got to be careful how I say that, but rooted in faith, but not a dead faith, a real faith. May our lives be filled with the kind of faith that demonstrates itself in ways that make you know, cause you to know us because we're walking in your ways. Please open up your word to us continually as we continue in Joshua. In Yeshua's name, amen.